Hello, Social Studies for the Child students. This lecture is going to be over lesson and unit planning in social studies, and specifically we are going to kind of dive into what you are going to be, the format you're going to be writing your social studies unit at the end of the semester. So before we get started, as always, you're going to fill out a graphic organizer for this lecture. It is on page 24, and you can see that you're really just breaking it down into 3 sections. So the top I've labeled Social Studies / Language Arts lesson format. That'll make more sense here in a second. The second box is Bloom's taxonomy, and the third box is multiple intelligences. So go ahead and pause this, set up your notebook, and then come back to me. Before we even get into our detailed notes, some things that I want to cover in lessons and units is kind of this framework or this path that we take when we are planning our curriculum, our units, and our lessons. So last week we talked about the National Council for the Social Studies and the themes and the systems that they've put into place. From there, the Ohio Learning Standards have taken that and put those into place while they were looking at NCSS. I think we understand that so far. And then we have these Ohio Learning Standards. And from there, the school district that you work for, the school district that you work for is going to basically give you a framework. So they're going to say, we're going to use this curriculum, or some school districts will say, you have to come up with your own curriculum or kind of piecemeal it together. I would say if any subject is going to be piecemealed and the leaders in your district are going to say you got to figure it out yourself, it's going to be, sadly, social studies. And so from that, let's just assume that we are going to piecemeal our curriculum for the year. So the first point there says establish goal, theme, and identify standards. Luckily, those have already been covered for you because NCSS and then the Ohio Learning Standards. So the goals for each year have already been laid out, and we have went through and kind of identified those. The theme has already been laid out, and we already have the standards that we're supposed to get there. Once you take those standards, what you're going to do is you're going to chunk it up into 9 weeks. Okay, these standards we're going to hit in these 9 weeks. These standards are these 9 weeks. From those 9 weeks, you're going to then break it into, most likely, you're going to break it into units. And in those units, you are going to be able to establish weekly and daily goals. How you teach those daily goals is just as important as the planning that happened with NCSS, right? A lot of thought and planning has to be done from the top all the way down. If we just say, okay, we have themes and goals, we're good, and then you don't give it 100%, all of the hard work of NCSS has just been blown because we haven't really planned some solid lessons. The third point says develop whole group and small group activities. A lot of times in a lot of districts, our principals or our leadership will say, we really don't have that much time for social studies because language arts and math and science have taken precedence. And so what we want you to do is maybe not teach social studies. And so what I am going to show you is kind of a worst case scenario. The best thing to do is to teach social studies every single day. But if you have administration that makes your daily schedule, which they very well could, they could say the first 90 minutes is language arts. Everyone does it no matter what. And then the next 30 minutes is specials. And then after that, we have an hour of math. They might make the schedule for you. And so worst case scenario, you're going to have to pair your language arts and your social studies together. And so that's what we are going to kind of look at, and that is how we are going to develop the unit that you're going to be writing. So let's look at this next slide here. Let me explain it, and then you can pause it and write it all down. So this slide right here is talking about how we are going to pair language arts and social studies together, okay? Let's say that you do have a language arts block and that they do go into small groups. That's fantastic. You could pepper and sprinkle social studies content throughout that whole thing. We're going to pull back a little bit, and let's say that we have about, let's count together, the top, let's say, is about 10 minutes for a whole group lesson, and then you have 10 minutes for a whole group lesson at the end, so that's 20, and then let's say you have 20 minutes for small groups, so you have about 40 minutes that you could shove in social studies, but they want it to be integrating with language arts. That's the idea of what you're looking at right there. How you are going to write your unit is just what is shown here. So you are going to, let's think that there are 5 days in a week, and that's going to be our unit. Quite honestly, you will never have a unit that's 5 days. It's always going to be a lot longer than that. But let's just assume we're going to do a mini unit in 5 straight days. Your unit is going to be over the state of Ohio that you are going to be writing. So you're not choosing a grade. It's 4th grade social studies, and the unit that we're writing is Ohio. So it can be Ohio history, geography, civics, economics, or a mixture of both. But the theme there is Ohio. The first day, I'm looking at that very top circle, you are always going to start with a roughly 10-minute whole group lesson. So that's going to happen 5 different times, Monday through Friday. And then you are going to put your children into 5 different groups. Those 5 different groups are going to be, let's say you have 25 kids, and so you have 5 kids in each one of those groups. Over the course of the week, they end up going to each one of those 5 groups, right? So let's say we have a Sydney. Sydney goes to group 1 on Monday, group 2 on Wednesday. On group 3, you can see that that's teacher-guided group work. She's with you. On Thursday, she's in that 4th group, and on Friday, she completes all the groups, and she's in that 5th group. And so you're going to teach your whole group lesson. They're going to do one of those stations, and then they are going to end with about a 10-minute follow-up lesson. The thing that confuses people on this is that your whole group lesson cannot be directly connected to any of these small group lessons, because you might have, let's say, one of your small group lessons is over, I don't know, George Washington, okay? And so you're going to teach about George Washington in the beginning and follow up at the end. But the problem is 4/5 of your class did not have a small group on George Washington. So these small groups have to exist independent of that whole group starting and that whole group closing. So let's just do an example real quick. Let's say we're doing Ohio, and so on the on my whole group mini lesson, I'm going to work through Ohio history, and I'm going to chunk it up into 5 different segments, okay? And so I'm going to be talking about Ohio history in the very beginning, and then working our way into current day, okay? And so that is going to be my whole group lesson from Monday through Friday. I will start it, maybe show a video in that 10 minutes, get them thinking. I'm going to start it, push pause, they're going to go to small groups, and then I'm going to follow up in my whole group lesson. So whole group lessons is Ohio history. And then those small groups is going to be, let's say we're going to talk about the geography of Ohio. The next one, and they're going to fill out a map. The next one, they are going to do a flip book over the state capital, state bird, state flower, state insect, all that stuff. The next one is teacher-guided group work, and so I'm going to give them maybe a type of assessment. The 4th one, I am going to, let me think, I am going to have them do a writing activity. And then the last one, they are going to explore different books and do a story map on the book that they read about Ohio. Okay, and so you can see how whole group, the first one and the closing one are linked, and then these ones are completely, the ones in the middle, those small groups, don't connect except for by theme, but you don't need the beginning and the end for it to make sense. Okay, it's about 40 minutes. When you write your lesson plan, you will write a beginning for Monday and an end for Monday, 10 minutes each. And you'll do that for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then for these these small groups, these independent group work, you are going to just repeat them, right? Because all of the kids are going to be doing all of those each day, or rather, a fifth of your class is going to be doing each one every day, but they're only going to be doing one each day. What I want you to do is go ahead and draw this graph on that first block on page 24 in your graphic organizer, and then come back to me. Okay, you should have talked about Bloom's taxonomy a good deal. Something that I want to challenge, encourage, and slightly demand of your units that you write is that you remember this wheel of higher order thinking. In the middle, we have all of the different domains that we teach on. We have knowledge. They can just state or recite. Moving up a little bit, we have comprehension. They can paraphrase it in their own words, or they can infer or discuss. In the application part, I'm working my way all the way around that circle, they can solve or report or sketch. The analysis, they can compare and debate. Synthesis, they can invent something or plan or formulate something. And then the evaluation, that is their highest thinking, and they can assess or justify or judge. If you think that a kindergarten student cannot do all of these things, you are wrong. They just look differently for each grade. This is a very handy chart because what it does is it gives you the domain in the middle. On the outside, it gives you verbs that you could use while you're lesson planning or thinking, what am I going to have these students do to show their knowledge, to demonstrate their knowledge? And then on the outside in that green is student products. What are they actually doing? Are they going to make an outline, a sculpture, a diagram? Are they going to make a book, an editorial? This has always really helped me, and so that's why I'm sharing it with you. This would be very good to help you generate ideas for those small groups. What things do you want them to be doing? Okay? Go ahead and take a moment, and what I want you to do is draw the circle, or you can even draw it in columns if you want to, but I want you to, of course, to put all the purple in there, all of those domain names, and then I want you to choose some of the verbs that you could see using in a 4th grade Ohio lesson, and then some of the products that you could see them using in a 4th grade classroom. So pause this, draw that, and then come back to me. Our last slide here is talking about Howard Gardner and his multiple intelligences. A lot of times in social studies, what we have to fight back against is that we are just not going to read a text and write a paper. Even in social studies for the child, sometimes, and you'll remember this, you read out of a textbook and then you did a worksheet, and that was your form of a paper. But that is a lot of the times why children do not enjoy social studies, and that is a lot of times why children don't retain this knowledge and be able to apply it to their lives. So as you are thinking about different activities as we go throughout the semester, I want you to look here and think, okay, am I hitting all of these? You should not be hitting all of them throughout one lesson, especially one 40-minute lesson. But you should be hitting the majority of them throughout the week. And you can do this a lot in whole group. I might play some music that is from a musician that came from Ohio. You can play music. You might have them building the map of Ohio out of clay. You could have them in groups talk about places they've been to Ohio. For bodily kinesthetic, you could have them role-playing or writing a script or doing a reader's theater if there are props involved. I want you to look at all of these things and just label them. I know you've had them before, but go through and think, okay, I see bodily kinesthetic. I can role play, drama, movement, things to build, sports and physical games, tactile, experiences, hands-on learning. How do you think this could apply specifically to social studies 4th grade? And then again, like you did with Bloom's taxonomy, write some of those down that you could use in the future. But as we are lesson planning and unit planning, this Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences and Bloom's taxonomy is at the key, and that is the base of really strong teaching. Go ahead and pause this, write these things out, and you guys are finished with today's lecture.